Be honest, Casa Amor makes saints sweat. Tonight, we're counting down the top 5 most intense Casa Amor recouplings that had the fire pit sizzling and Twitter fuming. Deep breaths, tea at the ready, and let's dive in. Villa had that strange electric silence right before a storm. You know the one. Everyone's smiling too hard, shifting in their seats, waiting for the recoupling music to hit. Serena sat there, head high, the kind of calm you only get when you've already had the emotional breakdown in the dressing room. Her plan? Stay single. Hold her ground, show Kordel she trusted him. And then, here he comes. Kordel, striding back in from Casa Amor with Daya on his arm like it's prom night and he's just scored the new girl from out of town. The gasp that left Serena's lips wasn't audible, but you could see it in her eyes, that quick flicker from hope to you absolute idiot. The rest of the villa? Awkward clapping, a few open mouths, and the kind of body language that screamed, "Oh, this is about to get messy." The speeches were the worst part. Kordel's explanation danced around connection and vibe so much it might as well have been doing the cha-cha slide. Serena, to her credit, stayed poised. No tears, no dramatic walkout. But when she sat back down, her eyes locked on Daya for just a fraction of a second. It was all the audience needed to start drafting think pieces on loyalty and betrayal. Social media that night? Savage. Serena stayed single for that. Kordel brought back Daya like he's auditioning for Love Island Villains Edition. You could power the entire villa of Serena's side-eye right now. Inside the villa, the tension wasn't subtle. Breakfast the next morning was the politest act of war. Kordel offering coffee like a peace treaty, Serena taking it without a word. The other islanders tried to make small talk, but you could feel the frost in the air. And yet, somewhere between the awkward group chats and the endless justifications, something shifted. Because here's the twist Casa rarely gives us. Serena and Kordel didn't just recover, they went on to win the whole season. Yup, from betrayal to redemption arc in record time. By the time the finale rolled around, they were laughing about that little Casa bump in the road in interviews. Fans were divided, half screaming toxic, half calling it growth. In a way, the S6 Casa recoupling ceremony had already cemented itself in the franchise Hall of Fame. Looking back, it's almost funny how one walk back into the villa can set off an entire week of chaos, memes, and speculation. But in the moment, it was pure, uncut Love Island drama. And we loved every second. The villa that week was buzzing in a different way. The lads had returned from Casa Amor, but there was one name echoing in every corner. Tom Clare. Tall, charming, a walking Essex rom-com poster, but with a tendency to wonder when temptation called. In Casa, Tom had been busy. Lydia, that bombshell with the effortless laugh, had clearly caught his attention. And if you watch the slow-mo replays of them talking on the deadbeds, well, it looked more like a soft launch of a situationship than just friendly chat. By the time the recoupling rolled around, the villa had the atmosphere of a crowded pub just before a football penalty. Tense, expectant, slightly tipsy on adrenaline. Samie sat in her seat, legs crossed, jaws set in that I'm not stressed but I am absolutely stressed way. She'd seen hints, whispers. Even the Casa postcard hadn't painted a saintly picture of Tom. Then came the moment. Tom stepping forward, the recoupling speech on his lips. You could feel the collective inhale from the girls. And then, against the odds, he said her name, Samie. He'd chosen to return to the villa and stick with her. Half the room exhaled, the other half arched an eyebrow. Here's the thing. On Love Island, a loyal choice after Casa isn't necessarily a clean slate. And sure enough, the cracks showed almost immediately. The reunion hug was warm, but not warm. There was a flicker in Samie's eyes, a silent, I'll be smiling now, but I've got questions later. And boy, did she. That later came during movie night. The villa gathered, snacks in hand, ready for the kind of group therapy session that ITV calls light entertainment. On screen, footage of Tom in Casa, laughing with Lydia, leaning just a bit too close, that familiar smirk playing across his face. The reaction shots were priceless. Samie leaning forward, lips pursed, Tom's smile freezing in real time. She didn't explode, but her words had a scalpel's precision. Direct, cool, surgical. Social media went into overdrive. Tom's face during movie night equals a man calculating the exact second his holiday ends. Samie is holding it together, but her internal monologue is just air horn noises. This is why Casa is the devil's playground. Lydia later dropped in an interview that the recoupling night dragged on for hours. The speeches, the pauses, the tension, it all simmered before the edited 10-minute TV version. Which explains why in the WAR footage glimpsed on socials, half the islanders look like they've been emotionally jet-lagged. In the days after movie night, Tom and Samie had those hushed villa conversations, the kind where everyone pretends not to eavesdrop but absolutely is. Tom swore it was harmless flirting, Samie pushed for clarity, and slowly, like a stubborn zip, they worked it open. Astonishingly, the pair not only survived, they thrived. They made it to the final, racking up the could-win headlines and the fan campaigns. It was almost like the Casa drama had added a layer of steel to them. Of course, Love Island relationships have a habit of rewriting themselves post-villa. But in the S9 bubble, Samie and Tom's Casa roller coaster was peak telly. Messy enough to keep us hooked, tender enough to make us root for them, and dramatic enough to have every group chat screaming in caps lock.
If Casa Amor is the ultimate test of loyalty, Scott walked into the exam with all the answers. All week in Casa, he'd sat there like a man playing poker with a losing hand. No risky moves, no flirty bets, just folding every time temptation knocked. The other lads teased him, egged him on, but Scott stuck to his game plan. Ride out Casa, stay loyal to Catherine, and walk back into the main villa with his head held high. The night of the recoupling had that cool, tense electricity, like the air right before a summer thunderstorm. Scott stood by the fire pit, single, hands clasped, trying to look calm, but scanning the pathway every few seconds. The girls who'd been in Casa were lined up out of sight, ready to make their entrance. The audience at home, me, you, all of Twitter, leaned forward, certain we were about to see a loyalty win. And then Catherine appeared, not alone. On her arm, Elam, tall, smiling, looking like he'd just won a golden ticket. The gasp in the villa was instant and sharp. Scott's jaw tightened. He didn't flinch, but his eyes said everything. That's the thing about these moments. They don't need raised voices. The silence between the claps is deafening. Catherine gave her speech about wanting to explore a new connection and not closing herself off. It was diplomatic, polite, and completely at odds with the loyalty Scott had been holding on to like a lifeline. The other islanders shifted awkwardly. Some glanced at Scott, some at Catherine, but no one quite knew where to look. Twitter didn't have that problem. Within minutes, not Catherine, not like this. Scott deserves a national apology. Ellen walked in like he just repossessed Scott's car. And then came the confrontation. Scott, measured but clearly wounded, asked the question everyone was thinking. Why? Catherine defended her choice, saying Casa was a time to test feelings and she owed it to herself to explore. Scott didn't raise his voice, he didn't need to. His restraint was louder than any shouting match. For the next few days, the villa atmosphere was like a house after a massive row. People moving around each other, trying not to set off another explosion. Catherine and Elam sat together, but the chemistry wasn't exactly setting the pool on fire. Scott, meanwhile, slipped into the role of the quietly wronged party, which only boosted his public support. Outside the villa, the debate raged. Was Catherine wrong to explore? Was Scott too passive? Even Scott's brother chimed in on social media, defending him and subtly shading the situation, fuel to the already raging fire. News sites ran with headlines like, "Love Island shot Casa switch," and "Viewers back Scott after recoupling blow." Here's the kicker. By the end of the series, Catherine publicly apologized for how she'd handled it. It wasn't some PR polished statement. It was on camera, admitting she could have done things differently. For fans, it was vindication. For others, it was just another chapter in the ever-turning Casa Amor morality play. In the grand Love Island timeline, Catherine and Scott's 10th recoupling is the gold standard for quiet devastation. No screaming, no glasses thrown, just a walk into the villa that flipped the season's narrative in seconds. The kind of moment that gets clipped, replayed, and dissected in TikTok edits for years. Casa Amor in S11 had been simmering like a pot that everyone knew was going to boil over. In the main villa, Mimii had spent the week steady, confident, and just a little bit smug. Not the ugly kind, but the kind you earn when your connection feels secure. She'd clicked with Ayo early in the season, and while other girls were stressing over postcards and half whispers, Mimii kept her head cool. But Casa has a habit of turning safe into shaken. Out of sight, Ayo had been warming up to Jess S, the kind of new arrival who doesn't even need to try to make heads turn. They'd laughed, chatted, shared those little glances that always end up looking 10 times more dangerous on TV.
The night of the recoupling was pure theatre. The girls, back from Casa, waited behind the wall, clutching each other's hands like schoolmates before an exam. The boys sat at the fire pit, trying to play it cool, the hum of anticipation rolling over the villa like a heat wave. Mimii stepped forward first, alone, elegant, that slow, unhurried walk that says, "I know my worth." Her speech was simple. She'd stayed loyal because she believed in what she had with Ayo. Every word carried that quiet conviction that could only come from trust. And then, Ayo's turn. The pause before his reveal was almost cruel. Then, around the corner, Jess S. appeared, walking with that breezy confidence of someone who knows the camera loves her. Ayo smiled, too wide, too long. The gossip from the girls was collective. The look on Mimi's face was not. It wasn't rage. It wasn't shock. It was something colder. Acceptance, like the final click of a lock. She nodded, even smiled as they sat. The rest of the villa clapped hesitantly, the sound awkward and thin. In that silence, Mimi's composure became legendary. Twitter lit up instantly. Mimi's calm is more dangerous than any screaming match. Ayo fumbled like England in penalties. The way she walked in alone, queen behavior. After the ceremony, the air was thick with subtext. Conversations were short, polite, and edged like glass. Jess S. tried to find her footing, but being the new girl at the center of a loyalty breach is like wearing a target on your back. Ayo offered explanations. He wanted to explore. He felt confused in Casa, but every sentence seemed to slide right off Mimi's poise. She didn't bite, didn't give him the emotional blow-up that makes great TV. Instead, she gave him something far more cutting: dignity. Outside the villa, the discourse was vicious. Some called Ayo calculated. Others said Mimii was too good for him anyway. The Mimii walk-in clip went viral on TikTok, set to everything from Beyoncé to funeral bells. Memes of her side-eye became instant reaction images. The press dubbed it the most graceful rejection in Love Island history. The days after were a study in power dynamics. Mimii didn't chase, didn't plead. She moved through the villa with quiet self-assurance. The other girls rallied around her, offering comfort but also feeding her all the little tidbits from Casa that Ayo probably wished they wouldn't repeat. By the time the dust settled, the public had made up their mind. Mimii had won Casa Amor, even if she walked out single. And when she eventually left the villa, her interviews were calm, measured, and classy. No shade, no bitterness, just a firm sense of self, which, in a show built on explosive drama, is the kind of win that lasts long after the credits roll.
Some Casa recouplings blow over after a few awkward days. Others carve their way into the DNA of the season, replaying like a bad song you can't skip. JaNa and Kenny's? It's the letter. The kind of fire pit moment that sticks to the walls of the villa, follows you into every challenge, and, just to be thorough, shows up months later in post-villa interviews like an uninvited +1. All week, JaNa had been sure. The kind of sure you get from inside jokes, late-night chats, and the way someone looks at you during recoupling speeches. Kenny, meanwhile, went into Casa like he'd packed curiosity in his carry-on. At first, nothing seemed too alarming, but then came her, a Casa girl who laughed at his jokes, asked him questions, and made it clear she wasn't afraid to step on toes. It started with just chats, then escalated to testing a connection, and by midweek, a kiss. The night of the recoupling felt loaded from the start. The islanders in the main villa could sense something. The air had that heavy, static tension, like a room just before someone breaks bad news. JaNa, dressed in a knockout outfit that said, "I'm secure," stood ready to hear Kenny's choice. And then, there he was. Kenny, walking in with the Casa girl on his arm. Not sheepish, not awkward, smiling. The fire pit reaction was instant. Some mouths dropped, others tried to mask it with polite clapping. JaNa froze for a fraction of a second, and then her face set. No tears, no theatrics, just that quiet, dangerous calm. When she got her turn to speak, she didn't waste time. Why did you bring her back? The question landed like a pin drop in a silent room. Kenny mumbled something about wanting to see where things could go, that they'd shared a kiss, and he didn't want to leave any stone unturned. He tried to make it sound noble. It didn't. Social media predictably went nuclear. Kenny, you're done. JaNa's face right now could curdle milk. He just blew a 10 out of 10 connection for a 3-day fling. The next few days in the villa were brutal. Kenny's attempts to talk were met with short answers, polite nods, and the occasional raised eyebrow.
The Casa girl tried to blend in, but the other women, loyal to JaNa, kept their distance. Group chats in the villa got quieter, breakfasts became awkward rituals. Kenny eventually broke down in tears, yes, actual tears, sitting on the daybeds telling JaNa he regretted hurting her. But by then, the damage was done. The spark between them had fizzled into ashes, and no amount of groveling was going to reignite it. What made this recoupling legendary wasn't just the shock, it was the afterlife of it. Post-Villa, the shadow of Casa followed them everywhere. In interviews, fans kept asking about that night. Even when they gave it a go outside, the trust never fully recovered. Every disagreement seemed to have Casa's fingerprints all over it. And when the breakup came in 2025, the internet wasted no time dragging the receipts back into the light. Castmates commented, unfollows happened, pop culture blogs wrote timelines of the rise and fall of JaNa and Kenny, always starting at Casa Amor. The breakup coverage felt like a sequel to the recoupling episode. Same cast, same tension, just a different backdrop.
In the grand history of Love Island, this wasn't just a recoupling, it was a plot twist so seismic, it changed how viewers saw both of them for the rest of the season and long after the final five hit. The kind of moment you can't fast forward through no matter how many times you've seen it, because you know you're watching a love story flip inside out in real time.